The Brockville Museum acknowledges that the land on which we gather, exchange ideas, and share our past, present, and future is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat people. Welcome to our video series, Brockville Blazes. During the series, we'll explore some historic fires in Brockville's past and how they have shaped the landscape of the city today. So behind me is the Fulford block, and the Fulford block's history extends back to the late 1800s. The building was built in 1889 for George Fulford. It was designed by architect George Alexander Allen. The building mimicked the facade of what was then the post office and customs office at Courthouse Avenue. Allen was a prolific Brockville architect, and he was the architect of nearly 30 buildings in Brockville's downtown core. The Fulford block reflected a Romanesque revival style, and to put that simply, Romanesque revival was a 19th century version of the medieval European Romanesque style. And Romanesque revival was especially popular in Canada and the United States in the 1800s. So the Fulford block housed a number of businesses and offices. Most notably, on the top floor, there were the offices for George Fulford's business, Dr. Williams Medicine Company, that sold the patent medicine Pink Pills for Pale People. On the second floor was the Brockville Business College, first opened by Professor Bannister in 1883, and it moved into the second floor when the offices were first built. The college offered business courses like typewriting, telegraphy, and ornamental penmanship, and it was open until the 1960s. On the ground level was Curry's Drugstore, and the drugstore had originally been run by George Fulford, but it opened as Curry's in 1895. So a catastrophic fire affected the building in June of 1916, and it started at the rear of the FC Curry Drugstore in the Fulford block. The fire itself was relatively well contained since there was no breeze coming off of the river. Man Lloyd Stagg was returning home in the early morning hours with mail from the trains at the depot when he noticed that the glass was falling from the top of the building and that there was smoke that was billowing out of the lower part of the building. He went to alert the post office, who sounded the alarm from box 32 at the corner of King and Broad Streets around 4 o'clock in the morning. In total, the fire department directed 8 streams of hundreds of gallons of water towards the fire. This did not come without consequences. A nozzle of one of the fire hoses kicked back through the water pressure and knocking 2 of the firemen down into an open cellar on Courthouse Avenue. There were also acts of daring from one of Brockville's citizens, Miss Ada Splan, and she was Senator Hardy's secretary, and she climbed a ladder to reach the senator's offices on one of the top floors of the building, retrieving valuable papers, and safely made it back down to the ground floor. Hundreds of spectators crowded around to watch the fire being fought in action. Some were very nearly injured when the roof of the building caved in, sending the corners of the roof tumbling down to the sidewalk. So fighting the fire in total took around 3 hours, and at about 7:30 a.m. the fire finally was under control, although the firefighters stayed until 12:30 p.m. on the scene. So the blaze ended up gutting the building, and it was reported that none of the business college's papers survived the fire and that they lost their supply of 23 typewriters. Similarly, over 5 million pink pills were destroyed, and Curry's lost their entire inventory within the drugstore. There was approximately $75,000 in damage done to the building. So when questioned, Curry did not know what started the fire. He had been in the office at around 2 a.m. to secure a steamship ticket, but he had noticed that the doors had been locked and there was no sign of a fire. And a number of other businesses who had their offices in the Fulford block later had to re-establish themselves at other business buildings within downtown Brockville. So after the fire, a decision was made to rebuild the upper level as quickly as possible so that businesses could reopen. Unfortunately, Allen's Romanesque revival architecture was not maintained. The third floor was redone with brickwork, and it is a noticeable departure from the previous architectural style. So fortunately enough, Heritage Brockville has erected a plaque on the south side of King Street, which shows some archival photographs of what the Fulford block looked like before the fire in 1916. So we can see that the character of the downtown has been altered by this fire, and you can drop by King Street to get a view of the historic section of buildings. Thank you very much for watching.